Good morning, everybody, and you're very welcome to the Guaranteed Irish Startup Forum for 2022. I'm Breed O'Connell, Guaranteed Irish, and delighted to have you on board with us this morning. As you're registering and coming through, allow me to introduce our speakers. First and foremost, I suppose thank you for taking the time to register yourself, but most importantly, bear in mind we really want your engagement and your input, so question and answers will follow at the end. Two great speakers for you this morning. David Mahon is the founder and chief executive officer of the award-winning EVAD Technology Group, with over 25 years experience founding and leading companies with a diverse background in technology sales, strategic growth, startups and cloud computing. David specializes in designing route to market strategies for entry-level up to enterprise-level technology companies, and we're absolutely delighted to have EVAD as part of the Guaranteed Irish community, but also David speaking to us on first-hand experience today. David is also fingers in many pies, also owns the Dublin People newspaper, the South Side and the North Side paper, which we well respected and over 120,000 in circulation. And they also own All Things Office, which is a great business. And thanks, David, for joining us and giving us your time this morning.
No problem at all.
I also am delighted to introduce Susan Hayes Culleton, who is no stranger to most of you, CFA, the positive economist we know Susan as, and she's the managing director of the Hayes Culleton Group. She's a 5-time author, including Money Matters, a financial literacy textbook, The Savvy Woman's Guide to Financial Freedom, and The Savvy Guide to Making More Money. Susan is co-founder of the Positive Economist, associate lecturer at Ulster University, and host of the ESG and Tech YouTube show. Susan, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much indeed for having me, Breed.
And if anybody has somebody in second level school, they know Susan's name from the side of the textbook on economics, and we've all weathered that storm. Thanks for that, Susan. So delighted to have you guys on board. So I'm just going to go straight to David if I can. In terms of EVAD itself, how did you become involved in IT as a startup and an entrepreneur? How did you get involved in IT many years ago?
I think I've always loved technology. So it started with my mother, who'd always worked in the industry. She gave me an interest in coding at a young age. So I taught the basic languages, COBOL, Pascal, basic languages nobody even knows of now. It's moved on so quickly, so people have forgotten them. And then I moved on to become a senior engineer, an ICT consultant for another managed service provider in Dublin for many years. Let me
stop you there, Dave. In terms of your mother's influence, I'm really interested because she would have been of a totally different generation and very unusual for, and I say this reluctantly, but I'd imagine unusual for a woman to be in that position. How did that come about?
The company she worked for at the time was heavily involved with IBM. So at that time it was slot card solutions. And really, I mean, we're talking old school before Windows 3.1. She just had a flair for technology. And at a young age, I would have had some of the very first computers. So I had the Spectrum and the Commodores and all the computers that the kids had at the time. But she would have taught me the basic programming on those systems. She would have had an interest. And because she had an interest, I had no choice. It was forced upon me, but I had the same interest. So that's what started.
Yeah. There's no substitute for cultivating and inspiring, I suppose, from a young age. There isn't.
Very much so. My own daughter as well. I've had her in Code Academy since she was 7 or 8 years old, and she loves coding. She just turned 18 last week, and she's still coding now. She's moving into the art business, but she's as I said, she's been coding now for over 10 years, so she's actually better than me now. She's a much better coder than I ever was.
It makes such a difference when you get that inspiration. In terms of challenges, Dave, then, what challenges have you had with your business due to COVID, especially, I suppose, if we move right along now? Because you have a lot of businesses, and I'm sure they were all impacted differently.
Very much so. And we've had multiple challenges over the last 2 years for ourselves and for our clients. I think our clients, it's mostly been around cybersecurity, the fact that everybody's hybrid remote infrastructures now, it's just become more complex to manage and maintain. So that's been a big issue. For ourselves, the challenge has probably been our market is very hot at the moment. So it's been quite difficult to attract staff um, with the right experience, the right qualifications. Um, Really and truthfully, with the number of acquisitions that's happened in Ireland over the last 24 months, staff tend to stay put, and the security, the perks, it makes it quite difficult for what we class as a mid-sized business to acquire the right people of a senior level, and also to acquire other MSPs or other businesses like ourselves. There's been a huge consolidation in the industry over the last 24 months. Evros has been acquired by Air. Ergo was acquired Aztec. Arc acquired Trilogy, and then Presidio bought Trilogy, which is a $3 billion company. So you're seeing huge investment coming in from the UK, like Callego has bought 3 Irish companies and 10 over the last 2 to 3 years. So there's a huge interest in the Irish MSP market from Americans and VC companies. And it can make it.
Why now, David, though? Why is the interest now as opposed to prior to COVID?
I think it's always been there, but within COVID, it was better to buy the business. I think they were buying the book of business and they were consolidating it, trying to generate better revenues. So the revenues weren't really going up, but the book of business was staying there. So over the last 20 months, those acquisitions have just grown and grown and grown. It's been every day of the week there's somebody being acquired in our industry in particular. Nearly every day of the week there's somebody being acquired.
Why Ireland? Why is the interest so much in Irish companies? I'm really interested in that because I mean these companies are all over the world.
Yeah, I think there's two benefits to it. One, we're one of the last English-speaking countries to Europe, and with the UK with Brexit moving away, we ourselves won a lot of business because of Brexit, because they wanted we with our cloud stack, they've moved infrastructure onto our European cloud in a sense, but all our staff are still in the UK, so
Right.
there's a benefit to that. But I'm unsure. I just think it's a lot to do with maybe the talent pool in Ireland. There's a bit of a can-do attitude in Ireland towards other industries, other countries, and also I think the educational system is still by far probably one of the best in the world. So that's why you were still seeing an influx of Spanish and Portuguese and other countries are still coming in here, because the educational system is still seen as top drawer.
Good to hear. And have there been unique opportunities then here as a result of COVID?
For us in particular, our cloud has been our biggest solution, has been a big benefit, because everybody wants that remote flexibility. So we have invested heavily in our Fujitsu cloud stack at the very start of the pandemic. Looking back, I should have invested in it before that, but that's hindsight is a great thing. But we had a lot of reviewing because it was a heavy investment when we knew it was going to be tough over the next year. We didn't know how long it was going to be, but it was about finding another product that had value to our current offerings. So having the right product at the right pricing allowed us to pick up business over the last 24 months, especially from the UK. So that's been a big one. And also, as I said before, the opportunity with the amount of large acquisitions, taking those players out of the market into larger corporate groups, it opened up a lot of new clients to us that we were not getting. They weren't getting the response or the attention from the larger groups after the acquisitions. So in a sense, they were handing a lot of business to us. So we got some natural growth from that over the last 24 months, and that's been quite a benefit. So in a way, we find it difficult when we're trying to buy another MSP, but then again, because we want to grow ourselves and give a little bit of a boost to growth, but also we're also nervous based around culture and so forth. When we do acquire something, are we going to have the same problems as some of the other guys that have been acquiring other MSPs in the market, where they're losing touch with their customers?
Actually, that's a very interesting point. And if I can just stay with that for a minute with you, Dave, how have you found that in terms of integrating one culture into another? And I suppose talk to us about your growth then, because obviously it's been significant.
We've been very, very fortunate. We have a good, strong team internally. It's quite a family attitude inside, and we try and keep it that way. So I won't say being like Google, but we have a gym on site now. We try and give as many perks as possible. There's a basketball net in the middle of the comms room. There shouldn't be, but it's all about having a bit of fun sometimes. For us, it's about the attitude of the staff. So if the staff are having fun and enjoying it, they're going to treat the customers well. because if they're enjoying work, they're going to enjoy actually doing what they're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis. If they dislike it, it's going to be miserable, and everybody knows their job. We're quite lucky in a sense that we're still a small enough entity. The group's only got 65 staff, so we still have that personal touch between everybody. So for us, we've been quite fortunate, and also all of our businesses that we have are quite niche. They all integrate with each other. So the IT section integrates with our web development section, integrates with our stationery business and our print business. So they're all part and integrated in some way, shape or form. So our client base is really a shared client base across the group.
And in terms of growth, Dave, then if I can, it must have been huge over the last 12, 24 months.
We've grown substantially. As I said, our biggest problem is staffing it. We've signed some major contracts with Fujitsu in particular. So we're the only Fujitsu platinum partner in the country. And what we've done is we've acquired a fair amount of break fix business and so forth with them, due to the fact that a lot of the companies have backed out of the UK companies have backed out of Ireland, and we've basically taken over that business in the country. There was a lot of UK large corporate companies that were in Ireland that were doing a lot of the technology. They were hiring engineers working remotely. We've acquired a lot of that business. So that's where we've seen growth. And our cloud, as I said, we have seen huge growth in our cloud. People don't want to have equipment on their site anymore. So everything is really done as a service now. And you can have as much as or as little as you want. And people are so used to paying now on a monthly subscription that has changed the whole model of how people are buying equipment or upgrading equipment now. It's all kind of done as a service. So that's our biggest growth path. It has been for the last 12 months. We've now got a couple of 1,000 users on our cloud stack already, and hundreds of servers already. So that's where we see our business going. We have no choice. That's where the market's pushing us.
And you mentioned earlier, and there's a question in here about this, that you should have invested in the cloud sooner. At what point would you have recommended investing now? Because there are still people out there, wavering between the two.
We do both. So we do public cloud and we do private cloud. So our private cloud stack, it was a very, very heavy investment. I would still see cloud investment as not just providing that service. Anything related to cloud has an advantage at this moment in time. There's huge VC companies out there looking to put money into anything that's AI related, healthcare related, even out to 3D printing. There's a lot of funding still out there in the market, and they're really looking for the latest thing or the newest products. Sometimes it's funny. It's not about inventing something new. It's about providing a better service or a better product that's in the market. So there are new business to be created there, and may just be replicating something on the market, but just being 25% better. And naturally you tend to acquire more than the current companies that are in place. I would say, dipping your toe into cloud at the moment, public cloud is the easiest one to do it. Once you're a Microsoft provider, or you're using Amazon, or you're using Google services, you've got the same sort of access as we would have as an infrastructure company that's been doing it for 20 years. We may have some more connections internally, but you still have the same option of getting into it. Building a private cloud, my advice is, partner with one of the big boys. We partnered with Fujitsu. HP, it can be partnered with, Dell can be partnered with. If you're going to build it out, you really need to be tied to that brand, because it's such a heavy investment, and it's a long-term investment. It's not something that you'll be investing for a 24-month. It's a 5 to a 10-year investment.
Yeah, I bet. David, that's brilliant insight into it. I'm sure we've more questions to come to you, but I suppose just on the final note here for this morning, before we do the questions from the public, what opportunities are you seeing right now within the IT industry post-COVID?
Okay. We're lucky enough. Ireland's kind of a superpower when it comes to ICT. There's so many data centers and cloud companies here at the moment, and as I said before, it's probably a testament to the talent pool that's in the country at the moment, the senior talent pool in the education system. I still believe all the opportunity is in cloud-based systems, security. The investment that's there for that sort of market at this moment in time is phenomenal. Really, it can also be about packaging your systems, I think, as well. I've seen probably maybe 20 different antivirus or cloud-based solutions pop up in the last 6 months that are now presenting to do things in a different way. There are new technologies out there like application, ring fencing, like products like ThreatLocker and so forth that have just popped onto the market over the last 12 months that people wouldn't have thought of 2-3 years ago. Now it's become a major thing because of the cybersecurity aspect. So there's still, it's really about finding something of interest for a new business that's a startup. It's finding something of interest, but it has to have a unique selling proposition. If it doesn't have that unique selling proposition from the beginning, it's very difficult to change it over a 24-month or a 26-month setup stage. So for me, it's about investment. There's a lot of external investment coming in, a lot of external buying power coming in, and they really have, I think it was a 30% drop over the last 2 years, as far as I know, in investment and company creation across Europe. There's 30% less startups or something over the last, from what I read in one of the reports. So I can see a jump now post-COVID where there's going to be a lot more new startups, and I think the investment is there. It's just finding it and having the right solution.
Yeah, so innovation is always key, isn't it, Dave? And I suppose in terms of opportunities there for those who go out and get it and find their USP and clearly define it, make it easy.
Yeah, I think it's and I said again, anything healthcare is such a hot topic at the moment. If you have any software or any sort of hardware infrastructure that can improve healthcare in any way, shape, or form, it's probably the hottest on the market. Anything that's artificial intelligence that can automate in some way, shape, or form, that's amazing. And then 3D printing is probably a big thing you'll hear more and more about in the next 2 years. You'll see now that a lot of the garages now, European wise, rather than ordering in thousands of parts, they print the part on site that day. So you go in and there's a broken piece of plastic inside your car. They put the part code in, and 2 hours later the piece of plastic is printed. So they're not holding thousands and thousands of the same part, or paying for thousands and thousands of the same part. They can print it and they can fix it there and then. So it's
fantastic, isn't it? Fantastic. Life before COVID and life after COVID has changed so dramatically, which is a nice segue actually into Susan and your PowerPoint there in terms of what we're going to talk about. But David, we definitely want to come back and join in on questions and answers here at the end. But it's just unbelievable the pace of change and how things are moving. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you very much, Breed. And as I was listening there to David, I was tweeting some elements out around what David said there, around, you know, the changes to do with the cloud, the changes to do with cybersecurity in particular as well. And also, it's really great to hear the can-do attitude and the higher education system of the Irish workforce being very much promoted as well, because it is, Breed, you were talking there about companies finding their USP, their unique selling point. As a country, we have to keep doing that, and I know no better woman to talk about that than the CEO of Guaranteed Irish anyway, but I just think that it's an important point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take people through 4 practical steps that personally I took. One of our own values at the business is that we practice what we preach. So these are 4 that I took myself as a founder, continue to take, because if we could just go on there to the next slide there, which looks at my story. And the reason that I put together this biography slide is that I think that every startup goes through a situation of where they're always moving and changing and pivoting and turning. And when I look back at the business back since 2010, I think I've so far, I'm almost up at half your company's life there, David. When I hear over 25 years, we're coming up to 12. And over the years, there's certainly been things that have really mattered. Now, I put up the milestones there in this, but actually the red icons is what I would like to direct you towards, because they were the key skills that I needed to develop personally as a startup founder. The first one was to be able to do business internationally and to have those international relationships. And I talk a little bit more about how that has changed during the past 3 years. Then after that, and David spoke about this quite a lot, is being able to manage people. And that's not a given. That's not a given. I think we can be very hard on ourselves sometimes because we think we should just be automatic people managers. And yet, would you ever criticize somebody if they were to look at a balance sheet and not be able to read it because they never learned how? Well, no, you'd send them on a finance for non-financial managers course or something like that. But when it comes to managing people, we often think we should just know. And it's certainly not the case. It's important that you learn how to do that, because there are lots and lots of things you can learn along the way. The next red icon there that you can see is stakeholder management. It's understanding how everybody fits into the picture. And again, I'm going back to David, a couple of things he said. Number one was he was talking about integrating culture, and it's the point that Breed picked up on as well. how you can actually integrate different stakeholders together is critical, whether you're acquiring a company like David mentioned, or he also mentioned about partnering with somebody like Fujitsu. When you're partnering with other organizations or companies as well, understanding how they work and understanding how you can work together is really where you unlock the value. The next one, I would have to say, from 2018 onwards, and this is without knowing a pandemic was coming down the tracks, the next one is learning about technology. And when I hear stories that David was talking about there, whether it's to do with cloud or again, whether to do with cyber and everything else, to dramatically increase the digital quotient of our company was critical. Little did I know it, but it was critical coming up to the pandemic, which I'm going to talk to you about now. And then the last one, the last red icon there, is actually to do with sustainability. Understanding how to make your business sustainable and how understanding your own personal sustainability as well is really, really important. So with all of those in mind, that's how I think my biography has been shaped. It's not about necessarily the books that I've written. It's not about the businesses that we've built. It's not necessarily of any of the major metrics that you might see from Enterprise Ireland. In my mind, my real biography are the skills and competences that led me to become the founder that I now am. And therefore, it's these 4 practical steps that I'd like to share with you. So we're going to start off with the first one. And what you'll see on the next slide is the innovation partnership. Now, I want to tell you about this because often I hear people talking about funding innovation themselves. Now, I don't suggest that you do that. Of course, you can go out and you can spend your own money, but innovation is very risky. It genuinely is very risky, and a lot of it fails. Now, let me just be very clear about the word failure here. When I say fails, I mean that it's probably not going to be market ready, an awful lot of innovation. Because you might say, like I have in front of me here, I have a ring light, right? And I might say I'm going to come up with a better ring light than that, that's brighter, or it's cheaper, or it's faster, or it's more efficient, or it's something. And then when I bring this to the market, I realize the existing distributor maybe has it all sewn up, or maybe people don't want something different, etc. So in essence, you could say that innovation is a failure. Now, there is no such thing as failure really, because I probably learn an awful lot as I'm going, and I probably, okay, well, maybe it's not a ring light I need to be selling, maybe it's something else, and various different elements along the way. So often innovation isn't necessarily wasted because of the learning that can happen along the way, but you can spend a lot of money in figuring out what the market does and doesn't want. And when you get it right though, when you find a new product or new service that the market is genuinely interested in, it can be really, really, really brilliant. But you don't have to do it on your own. David there talked about, you know, the benefits of being in Ireland, about the, you know, the good quality workforce, the can-do attitude. In my mind, the innovation partnership is one of the best things about being a founder in Ireland. So let me just walk you through this process. First of all, now I've done this twice, by the way, so I'm going to give you my exact example. The way this works is, we're a business, we have an idea that has to be innovative, right? It has to be innovative, which means it's either an improvement on something that's there already, which is called incremental innovation, or we come up with something totally new, and that's industrial innovation. Okay, so we are a business, we come up with a new idea. Now, we partner then with the university. Now, you don't have to go out and be knocking on any door of a university. You go through Knowledge Technology Ireland. That's the screenshot up there at the top of that slide. Knowledge Transfer Ireland, apologies, Knowledge Transfer Ireland. They know all of the institutes of technology, they know all of the various different colleges and knowledge transfer agencies right across the country. So we go as a business to Knowledge Transfer Ireland and we say, we have this problem that we would like to build out a solution for. They find the people in order to actually deliver upon that. We bring 20% of the money to the table. Enterprise Ireland bring 80% of the money to the table. All 100% of that money then goes to the university to implement that solution. That's how you risk share with the government. David said the #1 problem he has is recruiting staff. It's the university's job to recruit the staff to work on this. In our case, so we're currently in our second one, like I mentioned, we're at the second half of the second one. Our partner is DCU. We have 3 staff in our innovation partnership, right? So #1 is a postdoc. So she finished her PhD. #2, finished her master's in e-commerce before she started. And #3, she is a tech intern. Her job is part-time. And then on top of that, we have our PI. A PI is our principal investigator who oversees the whole project on our behalf. And then our company and the knowledge, the innovation partnership team, we work together then to deliver our innovation. Now, generally when I tell people this story, they ask me 2 things. They ask me what happens at the end, and secondly, what did we do? Now, what did we do is going to be on the next slide, but let me just tell you about what happens at the end, right? So let me just go back again at the beginning. Is you have an idea. It has to be innovative. It has to be different. You go to Knowledge Transfer Ireland. they link you up with some universities who they think might be able to implement your solution. You talk to them, and then together you decide how this proposal is going to go forward. We put in 20% of the money as a company, Enterprise Ireland puts in 80% of the money, 100% of the money then goes into the university. That's how you risk share with the government, and then the learning journey that I was talking about earlier, as well as the potential commercials that can happen, can be much more equitable based on who genuinely benefits from this. Right, so what happens at the end? Let me leap forward. You get to the end of your innovation partnership. In our case, this was August 2019. What if we decide at the end of that 2 years, not for us? Not for us. Joe, what we tried, we created something. Actually, you know what? That's where it ends. We learned an awful lot, but that's it. Well, then both parties walk away. No repayment required, nothing. The government invested a lot of money. You invested an awful lot of time and effort and money in your idea. You decide we're going to call it quits. You walk away. And that's the difference. But now you walk away where Enterprise Ireland has put in 80% of the money, as distinct to you putting in 100%. On the other hand, as in our case, you get to the end of the 2 years, you decide, yes, we want to take this and we want to go and commercialize it. Then we have an exclusive license with that university where we're the only company that can take that innovation and we can sell it into the market, which is what we've done. And then we went and we're now building on it again in our second one because we want to build. We then could see so much more opportunity based on what we did. So now we're into our second innovation partnership and we're all started again. They had to go and recruit the people. We're now in a position where we're now talking about our second license and we're also talking about what we can do next. So I wanted to start off by saying you do not have to go this journey alone. Risk share with the government or partner like David is doing there with, as he mentioned, the big boys when it comes to building out a cloud solution. You do not, absolutely not have to do this journey on your own at all. Look around and see where you can work with other people, whether it's the government, like in the case of the innovation partnership, whether it is a cloud collaboration like what David is talking about, whether it is of course Guaranteed Irish itself, to see if there's a way in which that you can partner with the organization to get your message out there or to get your product out there, etc. But do not think that it is one person and a laptop and that's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be that way at all. Is that I would always say that your team is not just the people on your payroll, it goes far beyond it. Okay, that's where we're starting. My second point then, if we can go on then to the next slide, is that it is very important to understand how to tailor your experience for your customers, but in an automated way. So here's a Deloitte statistic for you: 20% of customers would pay 20% extra for personalized services. Now, let me distinguish the different types of products and services that are likely to be here today. Some of you might be B2B. B2B is business to business. This is where, let's say afterwards, I'm going to go to David's business and I'm going to say, right, David, you mentioned that you have a range of different staff and that there's a great sense of culture there and that you're integrating well among each other. And I don't know, insert service that I might have for David and his staff specifically, that would be B2B. Now, on the other hand, let's say I'm Reid O'Connell, and this time what I would like to do is I would like to take Guaranteed Irish and I would like to expand it out so that I can now reach more members maybe who are independent booksellers in rural Ireland across the country. That would be B to C. It's not necessarily that Reid might be sitting down and talking to every single one of those about a way in which they can maximise their membership at Guaranteed Irish, but instead she wants to reach maybe a mass amount of people instead. That is B to C, business to consumer. Both of them are going to be tailoring what they're offering. In Breed's case, there might be a specific sphere of membership that might be available to maybe one to 5 person businesses. In David's case, he's going to tailor it, or I'm going to tailor it, let's say, to entirely the way David's business works. So we're all doing it for a start, is what I want to say. But some of us can automate some more elements than others. Now, in our case, what we have done is we have really listened to what our customers want. And just like, do you remember when in school a teacher would say, put up your hand and ask a question, because if you have that question, it's probably 5 or 6 more people in the classroom have the same one. Same with your market, is that if there's one person probably wants cloud services from David in a certain way, there's probably 10 or 20 or 100 more. But it's actually by being able to truly listen to what your market wants. The tool I'm mentioning over here is in the bottom right hand corner. It's called Hello Next. That's the one we use. And what we do is that in every single interaction with our customers, we ask them to critically analyze the way in which they would like for us to be better for them. Now we gamify it, so we don't just send out a survey after and say, oh, please send us your thoughts, because generally people you hear back from are very happy, peed off, or have the time to do it when they probably should be doing something else. If you want a genuine cross-section from your customers, you have to integrate it into your service, integrate it into the actual customer experience as well that you have. So we use Hello Next, and Hello Next is a tool where not alone can people actually share their responses with us, they can upvote on others. That's the bit that a lot of people miss out on, is you're asking people to originally critically analyze what you do, whereas instead what we do is say, look at everything else that other people have said that they wanted. Do you agree? Are there certain points you agree on? And then we ultimately let our customers enable us then to make very empowered and aware decisions about where we're going to put the personalization or where we're going to put our money from the point of view of innovation, etc. So that's what I would say. That's just one way that you can personalize your service. And it's something that we've been using for the past while, and it makes a really big difference, because then it's not my co-founder and me sitting in a room like this where we're making a decision in a vacuum, deciding, and we're probably biased by what do we want to do, what are we most interested in doing, what makes most cost-effective sense. Whereas what you really need to do is listen to your market, and it's not always easy to get from them what they want unless you ask. Make it easy for them to answer, and then give them, as I say, the other ideas of what other people are saying as well. So that's my second thing, is listen to your market, automate your personalization, and ask your market to help you make the decisions about where you're going to divert your time and resources and money along the way. Now, my next one is, it's really important that you show your customers how to interact with you. One thing I will say about being a startup founder, like David there again mentioned, isn't a good thing you were before me, David. I don't know what I would have said without you. But the thing that David mentioned there is that he said in the last 12 months, there's been a range of new cybersecurity offerings that have come into the market. And he mentioned a number of them there. When it comes to you bringing a new product or service to the market, you have to teach people to want what you're offering them. What Irish person in the 80s said they wanted to eat sushi? Exactly, none of them, because it wasn't here. You have to teach people. How many of us back in the early 90s said, I couldn't live without my BlackBerry Pearl? Any of you who's on this call that knows what the BlackBerry Pearl is, you're probably showing your vintage. But my point is, you have to teach people to want what it is that you're offering them. So what we found was, within our business active peers, which is the one that arose from our innovation partnership, from that business, what we could do is, in the first innovation partnership, we built an algorithm to connect people based on what they know and what they want to learn. And we were able to match people really well. And you know what we found? Is when we match people really well, let's say Breed O'Connell, we're going to match her with David Mahon, and Breed is going to talk about understanding, really integrating the best of Irish business into what you do. David is going to show Breed how to build a much more solid cloud platform for her organization. We matched them together. On paper, they're brilliant. Do you know what happened? What we found is people didn't actually know how to learn from each other. So I built a video here into this slide. What we built then was a peer learning prompter. And what we've done here within this peer learning prompter is that we've actually shown people when they click on any one of these areas here, it actually prompts them through the conversation. So as a result, when they actually go through the conversation, questions appear like you're seeing here now. Questions appear like, why did you want to learn about this? Why are you confident in this area? Why did you say that you are very clear about this area? Tell me about a time that you used this skill and when it made a difference versus when it didn't. So what we had to do was actually help people to navigate through a peer learning conversation. And then the last step, as you're seeing here now, we also had to teach people how to reflect on what they learned. We also had to ask people things like, what did you want to get out of the conversation? What new information did you get out of the conversation? Rank the usefulness of this conversation. We had to help people learn what they actually knew. We had to help people teach what they knew. And then we had to help people learn what they learned in that situation. So that's the third thing I would say, is teach your market how to actually use your product. Then you'll create a need. My final point, before then I'm going to go back to Breed for any questions that anybody, either Guaranteed Irish might have or anybody else might have. My final point is this, is international trade can be very useful. Like David is talking about there about companies coming into Ireland, buying up companies. So of course, you never know, international trade for you may not be export, it may be actually finding an acquirer. But one of the things that I've done every year since I started in business, every single year, even in the past two, I just did virtually the past two, is I go on a trade mission every year to challenge my own assumptions. The whole business of Active Peers AI came from an idea I got on a trade mission in Dubai in 2016. And I could see the penny dropped, and I haven't time to tell you the story of how, but it is really important to do that, is to challenge your own assumptions. And also to look outside for inspiration from abroad. Yes, as David says, we are a great nation, and Breed more so than anyone will tell you why we're a great nation of building a business here, but there's so much insight and cultural insight and learnings we can get from abroad. The organisation I'm going to mention to you this time, Enterprise Ireland is brilliant, by the way, and the Leo on board BIA and all of those, and you probably know them all, but Enterprise Europe Network is absolutely pivotal in this area. Enterprise Europe Network is the home of all of the trade missions that are happening right across the EU and beyond. I could tell you so many stories about how Enterprise Europe Network was ultimately really pivotal in our business for sure. So basically what it is kind of like the Enterprise Ireland of the whole EU. It connects all of the LEOs together, all the chambers of commerce together, all of Invest Northern Ireland and all of those bodies, but right across Europe. So they create an awful lot of business to business brokering conversations that can happen. And if you want to reach out to them, just go to the LEO, go to your chamber or go to EI and they'll connect you right in. But it has been absolutely pivotal for us. So my final point before I go back to Breed is, in summary, I just wanted to put together the 4 key ideas that I have for you. Number 1 is risk share with the government. And you'll see all 4 on the next slide. Risk share with the government. Don't go down this road alone. Number 2, automate the personalization of your services. One specific tactical example of that is using a tool like Hello Next or something like that to gather insights from your customers and let them upvote on each other. Number 3 is teach your customers how to use your services. Like I say, our peer learning prompter was a direct explanation of how we've done that. And we now, by the way, only in the past week, based on what we got in through Hello Next, we're developing another iteration now of that. And then finally, I would say, look internationally for opportunities, whether it's trade, whether it's acquisition, whether it might be simple ideas or inspiration or best practice, and Enterprise Europe Network can help you do that. My final slide is there's some contact details there. If any of you want to get in touch with me afterwards, I'm more than happy to talk to you. I'm everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and the whole shebang. But after that, I'm now back in Guaranteed Irish and back to you, Breed.
Well, Susan, you're after putting fire under all of us. Well done. That was brilliant. Now, I know you're a mile a minute woman, so I know that. But for people who aren't listening, they need to check you out yourself, and you've all your contact details there. Susan, I'm really delighted with that whole thing from Enterprise Europe Network. And I know you mentioned it to me before, and you always stress it as being undervalued. So I suppose that, like the David there, for new talent, etc., there's opportunities there as well. So for people to consider that. I also love the way you have a clear business head in the saying of share the risk. There's no need for us to be spending our communion money on businesses when we really should be treating money as something we trade with, and not, you know, putting your everything on the line. It's a business, it's a formula, follow it through, get the help. It doesn't have to be all out of your own back pocket. I think that's really, really important. Those 4 points are really critical. Thanks, Susan, for that. A couple of questions for you though. The difference between doing business now and before COVID, is there a massive change, and have things shifted, and how have they shifted, and what have you found?
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. I think we have to be very careful too, Breed, and I'd be interested on David's answer to this too. I think we have to be very careful too, is that we have to preserve the learnings of the last 2 years and just not go back to the way things were. I mean, there's none of us in business ever talk about going back ever. So I don't think we should. I think we need to be very careful about preserving what we want now. And just to give you two very small examples. Number 1 is I traveled every 2 weeks. I was in the air every 2 weeks for 10 years, and there's no need for that anymore. Like there's no need for that anymore. We did perfectly fine for the past while. I'm looking at the moment, I'm going to be on a plane every month from now for the rest of the year, all right, once a month for a shorter period of time. And what I have found, Breed, is that the opportunity cost of the time that I spent traveling before is so much higher now, because we can achieve so much more online. So that is one of the things, is doing business internationally or acquiring internationally, or those types of ideas. There's so much more that's possible. The second thing that I think has changed as well is, look, and I know it's running through all of the conversation today, is our use of technology. I use low code all the time. I use tools that have a low code requirement all the time now, so that I can communicate back to the development team, for example, in the innovation partnership. And I think that has come from the fact that we're so much more used to things like building dashboards now on Airtable, or using our project management and ClickUp, or like David mentioned there about, like, we're much more happy to work in the cloud now than we've ever done before. So I think as founders and as people in business in general, we just need, question anytime that you now feel yourself, oh, going back to the way things were. Well, question, is there a more optimal way? And what can we do as we pave that way now? And that can be very, very lucrative, cost saving, but also much more productive. And we need to remember that.
David, any comments on that from your point of view in terms of the tech? I'm sure you're seeing it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, exactly what you said there, it's a trust issue as well. The trust of people in using the cloud now has changed because people got forced into it over the last 24 months. So they have a lot more faith in the infrastructure and the faith of where, the trust in where their data lies and how secure it is. So that that's changed over the last 24 months. I agree with you too. I think the amount of remote meetings we have now, it's become the only issue I've ever had with remote meetings is the calendar. It's a finite time, which usually causes as a problem. But I think what we've missed in the industry is the big shows. Even though they've done a lot of them online, it's not the same as having those kind of face-to-face. And that's why, again, we'll still be traveling at least once a month, if not maybe once every 6 weeks. But again, we won't be, I don't think we'll be doing as many site visits to customers as we would have had to do before. But I do believe the big shows and the big events that are actually on, I still believe they're going to be an opportunity for us anyway over the next basically 6 to 12 months. I'm actually going to one in the UK now within the next 3 or 4 weeks to a big cloud expo, and it's probably the first one we've done in 2.5 years. So
great. Guaranteed Irish, I'm going to shamelessly plug here, are back out doing their in-person events now again from next month. So while we'll do a little bit of hybrid like this, webinars, we'll certainly be back in person. So I think that's going to be really important. And there's a massive appetite for it. We know that from our awards coming up next month, where the tickets never even got to go on sale, they're just gone. So the desire for people to network, press the flesh, and have conversations in person, I suppose we can't underestimate that. But I think as Susan says, what to ask and to know what to ask is really important. A question for you, Susan, I think again, what advice would you give to a startup who wants to trade internationally or create relationships overseas, but does not know where to start or does not have the connections?
All right. By God, do I know the answer to this one? Okay, so let me go back to 2010, right? We started in September, 9/9/10 is our birthday, is our actual birthday, the 9th September 2010. Now, just in case anyone doesn't remember, we were a couple of weeks away from a bailout at that stage. We were heading into a serious recession. We were 2 years knee deep into a financial crash at the time. And I wanted to start bringing the business abroad. And at the time, all we were back then was a financial training business. Active Peers AI didn't exist. An awful lot of that biography slide didn't exist. Here's what we did. I went on an inbound trade mission, right? For a start, you can do those as well, where trade missions come to Ireland. And this trade mission from Malta was coming to Dublin. God love them, they were frozen, there was snow on the ground. And there they were in Clare Street at the bottom of Marion Street. The IMF now are at the top in November at this stage. And after that, I said to myself, do you know what I'll do? I'm going to go. I go to Malta afterwards, after meeting those people here, and let's see what I can do. At the time, there was a Ryanair flight, God bless Michael O'Leary, €30 return to go to Malta in January 2011. And I booked a hotel for, I can't remember however much. But here's where the magic happened. I went to Enterprise Europe Network, and I said, by the way, at the time, there was only 5 representatives of EN in Ireland. One of them was Dublin Chamber. I went into them and I said, I'm looking to go to Malta, like you, like the person who asked that question. I have no idea who to talk to, and I don't know where to start. Can you help me? They said, what dates are you going? I said the dates I was going in January. They put together the itinerary for me. So after that, I went over, it was the second week of January, and I went over and I met, there was about 15 meetings in the itinerary, because it was a direct result of what I had done of the inbound one. When they connected with their equivalent in Malta, they actually gave me a driver as well. And I spent that week in January going around meeting people in Malta, and I had my first order by the end of that week. Now, I can't say that that's happened, that'll happen every time, but Malta is very small. It's a very small country, and everyone knows everyone. It's like a hyper version of Ireland. And from there, that was where we started off. Now, as regards having the connections, the second thing I would say is I'm also on the board of the Irish International Business Network, and that I've been on it for the past 10 years. And IIBN has, let's say, a base in Dublin, or sorry, obviously Dublin, but London and New York as well. Also, if I just was to put you in the shoes, because obviously I know where we are, being Guaranteed Irish today. Let's think about the Irish diaspora that is everywhere. You've got, so that network, you have the Irish business networks all over America, and believe me, they will be very vocal in the next couple of weeks with the global greening. Then you have Ireland X Chamber of Commerce, so Ireland, well, AmCham is the American Irish Chamber of Commerce, you have the Ireland France Chamber of Commerce, you have the Ireland Portugal Chamber of Commerce, the Ireland Spanish Economic Network, they're all there as well. And the third, so you've got Enterprise Europe Network, you've Enterprise Ireland, their international office, you've got the Irish diaspora, and fourthly, ask your customers whether they too might have an office in another part of the world that you could start doing business with there. So there are 4 examples. Each and every one of them, by the way, I've walked the walk. Every single one of them I know works. And there's loads more as well. And if you want to take it offline, we can, but that's where I'd start. That'll keep you busy for a while, let me tell you.
And on the back of that then, what does Ireland offer to founders? And maybe Dave, if you want to start with this in contrast to the rest of the world, because we do have a lot of agencies out there who are happy to help. And we mentioned Leo's and Enterprise Ireland, but also for scaling, obviously the IGA is an obvious one. You know, how have you found that, or have you used that route at all, David? Have you gone solo?
We've actually never used that. I'm actually really interested in what Susan's saying, because actually we were never aware of that. I was never aware of a lot of those opportunities when we were growing out our business. To hear that has opened my eyes, to be honest. We've had a huge amount of attraction with venture capitalist companies coming directly to us, trying to acquire, but it's a different sort of. It's all about turning over and flipping the business within a period of time. And when you're trying to build something over a longer period of time, that doesn't suit what we want to do. So hearing the fact that all of those organizations are in place, and I'm really actually interested in what you said about the ones in Europe in particular, because it does open the doors to opportunities that we didn't really realize were available.
Well, there's a network straight away between you two. But apart from that, it's good to get that out there, because I think exactly like David, people are so busy running their business from the commercial side of it. There are helps out there, and let's use them if they're there. And they are so informed. I have to say, the guys in EI, Enterprise Ireland, IDA, and the Leos have been fantastic. And we send a lot of business that way, and they send a lot of business to us. So it's great about us all networking and dovetailing together. In terms, I suppose, then, a question I have to address, because it's come up here from one of the audience. What steps should my business take to improve young workforce retention? David, maybe.
Fun. One of the things we found inside is what we hadn't realized. We have quite a mix of age bracket internally within the business. If you're not mixing 2 or 3 young guns together, they tend to get bored very quickly. We found internally. What we try to do as well is we mix as much as possible. So we make as many events, and they can be something as simple as basically celebrating someone's birthday and making a big deal of it for every single staff member, or it can be it's making people feel like they're worth, like they're part of a team, like they're part of the company. Don't get me wrong, people move on over a period of time. There could be different challenges based around personality, based around skill base, and can be something simple. One of the perfect example for us would be, I've a young guy starting this week. He doesn't know whether he wants to be involved in IT. He just thinks IT is good. So until he sits down for a week and suffers, as I say, with our help desk and suffers with the team, he'll never know. But the only thing after a week's time is he'll understand whether he wants to be in this game and realizes he's going to have to study for the rest of his life, or he'll move on. But at least he'll know after a week. So I think one of the things we're doing is we're taking a lot of younger interns in, and we basically, even if it's only a week or two, just to give them a really good feeling for what real IT is like. Because a lot of the time, it's not the same as what they're learning in college. What they've learned in college is a broad skill. They'll probably use 10% of that with what we're doing within our business. So what we're trying to do, show them, is what the day-to-day is really like, and give them as much exposure as possible for a week or two, and then they can make an informed decision whether or not it's for them. The guys that are coming through the industry that have 4-year degrees at the moment, as I said, some of them want it. IT is so vast. It could be software development, it can be networking, it can be cloud technology, it can be anything. So they really still don't know, even leaving college, what they really want to do in the industry. So it's trying to provide that in the very beginning, and then try and set a path for them internally. So when they actually do decide, actually, that's what I like within IT. Well, these are the certifications you need to go for. This is the section you need to look at, and we'll start working on that with you now. And that, I think that if you're open and transparent with most of the younger crowd that's coming in, I think they're a lot more applicable to stay.
Yeah, no, I agree, and find that career path for them. But I suppose there's still no substitute for hard work. They have to put in the graft and deliver the goodies, as I say.
That's it. It's funny. It's very.
Sorry, go on, David.
I was saying it's funny how they could be in. A lot of the guys think, I mean, when you think IT, I'm just sitting and tapping a keyboard all day. They don't realize it's in ever. I had a young lad just left college there recently, and lovely kid, but he just couldn't handle the amount of study. And when he came into him, I was trying to emphasize, you'll study for the rest of your life when you're in technology. It's going to change every single week. If you're not learning something new every day, it's not a good day. And he never actually thought of that before he came in. He thought he was just going to learn a basic skill, and that's what he was going to do. And I think that's the point, is until someone actually sits through some sort of internship or and actually sees the day-to-day workings, it's very, very hard for them to choose a career.
Susan, comment.
Yeah, I have plenty of them. Again, Breed, I suppose I might look at this question from the start, the beginning and the end, right? So first of all, from the start, where do you find them? And I think one of the areas that we often don't look at is partnering with universities from a recruitment point of view. So David mentioned interns there. People often might say, well, where do you find them? My office is based here in TU Dublin. We're around the campus of Grange Gorman. Before that, I spent 11 years on the campus of DCU. Being part of a university environment is a great place to actually recruit, because when you're on the campus, they'll often say, look, we have got a group of people who are looking for an internship for a year, let's say third year in commerce in UCD as an example. We have one, she's been absolutely brilliant for the past 7 months that we recruited, say, directly from there. So that's where I would say it can be, is that if you reach out to the business schools of the universities and just say, look, I'm open to taking on people in the future, please feel free to circulate my details. That, from a starting point of view, that's what I would say. The second thing, one of our businesses is Savvy Teens, and we run work experiences for companies right around the country where we focus on careers, communication, and confidence. And so I suppose I have a very, very bird's eye view of what young people today want, right? Number one, of course, they want salary. Of course, they want that. But number two, David pointed out there, they want a path. And that is, if I'm here, like, they can be very burdened by their own talent almost, as in, how do I get to being CEO quickly? And as Breed says, they don't necessarily have the skills or the experience to get to that point. So by checking in, I find regularly with them and saying, okay, where do you want to go? What can you do? And people like David and I have much more capability of doing that than really big companies, because the pathways aren't clear, which is the beauty of them. We can actually really craft opportunities for them where they can be waxing and waning as they go along. The third thing is, David again is right. They will go. They will go, but that's not to say that they're gone forever. And like, we now have people where they go and they might be traveling for a while. That's been off the cards for COVID. You can understand that. Young people have, in their early 20s, they want to go backpacking around Australia or working in San Francisco or whatever. But by having, as Reid Hoffman talks about, the founder of LinkedIn, having your own staff alumni can actually be a great way to keep in contact with people, kind of say, here's what's going on. You never know where that kind of boomerang talent might come back. That just doesn't apply to young people. It could be people out on maternity leave or people leaving the workforce to take care of elderly parents. Like, we're a long living generation now. So that's what I would say is, go directly to your university. You might find a pool of talent you're not aware of. Number two, enjoy the fact that the path isn't clear and talk to them regularly about that. And number three is create your own staff alumni.
Okay, final question to you guys, and we've 7 minutes to wrap this up because we always start and finish on time. How do you establish personal sustainability to last the pace in your business, David?
Sorry, I missed that.
How do you establish personal sustainability to last the pace?
Oh, in IT, it's a fine line between mostly work and pleasure. It's nearly the same thing. Technology is either in your blood or it's not in your blood, as far as I'm concerned. So I spend more time tinkering with technology at home as I do actually in the office.
Now, David, that's not a good work-life balance. So I'm going to say from yourself there. Right?
I know it's not a good work-life balance at all. For me, it's all family. So yeah. I have a set thing where I don't work weekends. I do my Monday to Friday, and that may be very early in the morning from like 6 a.m. to maybe 8 or 10 o'clock at night, depending on what I'm doing. It could be later. But on a Saturday, Sunday, it's all about family. So I don't do anything on the weekend. I make a thing of it where every weekend it's just about the kids, because I have a 4-year-old, I have a 15-year-old, I have an 18-year-old. So it's quite a range. So
Susan, can I just jump on? Sorry, David, Susan, can I just jump on to you in terms of the personal sustainability for your own business? How have you lasted the pace? Because it's all you, Susan, that's doing the driving, and it's exhausting at times.
Yeah, well, I suppose over the years, all right, it's moved from my co-founder and I, who also, by the way, is my husband. So that, like, I don't know anything else than to have worked with them, and then having the team, the core team, and then the innovation partnership team, and others along the way. My personal sustainability has come from 3 places. Number one is I've always stayed true to myself, and I've always loved what I've done. And if I didn't, and by the way, there have been times when I haven't, is that I've had to be very upfront about that, first of all, with myself, and I've had to go to business coaches and say, look, I remember getting proper sick of traveling very early on, like proper sick of it, and I had to go and deal with that, and I found ways of overcoming that. And I find that that's certainly something by being honest with yourself along the way and moving with the times. Number 2, I absolutely don't work weekends. Now, I only started doing that in August 2020, but I have that hard barrier around my time, and I think that's where it comes from. And number 3, it's plain interest. Like, I'm genuinely intrigued by so much of what we do, and I'm as hungry now and as ambitious now, more so probably than I was back on 9/9/10, way back at the beginning. And if I'm not, Breed, I have to pull the plug on myself and change and pivot and hand it over to somebody else. Yeah. And it's about that constant honesty with yourself. But personal sustainability, I think, is from simply being true to yourself. Same thing we tell teenagers when we tell them pick a job you like. We have to say the same to ourselves, independent of what age we are, 4, 15 or 18, David.
Yeah, you have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, it's not worth doing it.
Absolutely, 100%.
Can I just say to the speakers, you're full of energy, and it's easily known why our events coordinator, Roisin, organised for you guys to speak to the rest of our attendees this morning. Thank you so much. The webinar has been recorded. We will be sharing it. And I think for people going away who are on the cusp of starting up, COVID has presented an opportunity to all of us. And I think it's important that while it's been a massive challenge personally and for our families, etc., and our businesses, it also, behind every cloud, there's a silver lining. There's certainly opportunities coming our way if they aren't here already. So it's up to us to reach out to the far-reaching branches and take them and make sure it works. Guaranteed Irish has really been successful during COVID because everybody wanted to buy Irish and buy local and support local supply chains. And to come back to one of your points, Susan, is not to lose sight of that in the environmental battle that we have to save our planet, it's really important that we continue to support local and shorter supply chains. Therefore, that means local by accident, just by keeping the logistics tight and the environmental impact low. So make sure we continue to drive and strive that. We'll certainly do that and supporting our members to do it. Last for me to do this morning is to thank Susan Hayes Culleton, Managing Director of the Hayes Culleton Group, and David Mahon, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of EVAD Technology Group. You've been absolutely fantastic, inspirational. I wish you continued success. And I'm sure this is not the last we'll hear of you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And good morning from Guaranteed Irish.
Thank you.
Thanks, Breed, and take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.